So I know that boredom is usually seen as a negative emotion, and for the most part, I agree. Boredom is the emotional byproduct of being unoccupied or disengaged. And given that there are many worthwhile and productive activities that you could be occupying your time with, it's usually the case that boredom should be avoided or eliminated entirely. So, if boredom is inherently a negative emotion and something that we naturally avoid, then how can doing nothing be doing something? Well, any emotionally stable person needs to be able to understand how to deal with the wide range of emotions they can experience. Not only do we need to avoid over-pursuing and losing ourselves in positive emotion, like pleasure, we also need to have a certain tolerance level of negative emotion, like grief, sadness, and, yes, boredom. Anyone who lacks the ability to self-regulate and stop their emotions from dictating their actions entirely is signing up for their own emotional roller coaster, which is, by definition, unstable. In today's modern age, the tolerance level for boredom is at record lows. This is because at no point before in history did we ever have such immediate access to sources of instant gratification at all times. We're a few clicks away from our cell phones, computers, and streaming services, providing us endless amounts of personalized short-form content to attract, amuse, and entertain us. Now, I've heard this, you've heard this, what does it matter? Well, the more we experience our constant sources of electronic entertainment, the more our everyday lives feel increasingly dull and uninteresting. This is true, and I invite you to consider the people in your lives who are the most chronically online and consume massive quantities of social media content. Are they generally happier or more dissatisfied with their lives? There's a bunch of reasons for why this could be, but the one that I want to point out today is that when we choose to escape the everyday mundane moments of our lives to be entertained, then we're making the world itself, which is what we're escaping, more boring. And when the world itself becomes more boring, then our emotional lives become increasingly insufferable, entering us into a negative feedback loop with greater social media use and consumption of entertainment. Let me put it another way. Boredom is the emotional state of being unoccupied. The more moments in our lives that we are leaving because we are temporarily unoccupied, then the further we're distancing ourselves from the present moment due to how boring it is. And it's widely the case that people are using social media, streaming services, and whatnot to fill in this void and occupy themselves. Nobody, as far as I'm concerned, was the exception to this. Not even me. Some people struggle with this more than others. But if you look around you, whenever the TV cuts to commercials, whenever the conversation hits a stale point, whenever we get on the bus or the front seat or sometimes even the driver's seat, every single one of us is tempted to pull our phones out. The reality is we're in an entertainment age as much as we are in an information age. So our tolerance levels of boredom are low across the board compared to, I guess, the rest of history. So how is doing nothing doing something? What you're doing when you're doing nothing is training yourself to tolerate boredom and resisting the urges that social media and other sources of gratification have created by eliminating that boredom in your life. That's not nothing. You're doing something that's actually quite valuable, given that it will make the everyday mundane moments of your life less insufferable and hopefully even enjoyable. And to clarify, the point of learning to be bored isn't necessarily to be bored for the sake of it, but because our threshold for tolerating boredom has fallen so low, we can now benefit from taking steps to restoring our capacity to tolerate boredom and rid ourselves of the dependency we've built on stimulation from our devices. What we need is a dopamine detox. Now, none of this is easy, all right? I can't even sit here and say for myself that I've completely rid myself of the influence that social media and cell phones has had on my mind. I grew up with this stuff. I also understand that sitting here and saying we should stop using social media entirely or any cold turkey solution is unlikely to be listened to by the vast majority of people. I understand. Instead, we can stop letting constant stimulation dictate our lives and begin taking small, deliberate steps towards a more grounded and focused way of living. That doesn't sound bad, right?